day, Dawns ARKS! Welcome everyone to your weekly Phantasy Star Online 2 podcast, recorded live on August 15th, 2020. I'm one of your hosts, PrinceBrightstar, and with me is Xance. Go ahead and say hello.
Hee-haw!
So, after several weeks of having some very busy schedules on these shows, we finally have a bit of a quieter week here, so we're not expecting to have to go for that long today. But regardless, we do have a good show for you. Say again?
We still got a good amount to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. But of course, we can't start with just that. We have to talk about our gaming week. So, Xance, why don't you go ahead and kick us off this week here?
Alrighty. Most of it has been either just PSO2 because of the recent stuff that came out with episode 4, and also some more Final Fantasy 11 because I don't know why I still like playing that, but hey, I enjoy it.
I'm curious.
Not only that, the new patch for Final Fantasy 14 came out, so I've been playing through that.
I am curious what class combination you play on 11.
I play Summoner White Mage. That's my main, but these past 2 times I logged on, I was leveling up Ranger, or specifically Ranger Warrior.
Gotcha.
I looked up what combo to do for Ranger, and it said the best sub job for Ranger is Warrior, so that's what I've been doing.
All right, cool.
It's kind of similar to how, you know how in PSO2, Hunter is just the best sub job for pretty much everything. Kind of similar in 11 when it comes to sub jobs, where Warrior is just really good, especially if you're any tank, because if you're a tank, you sub Warrior purely for provoke.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, with Final Fantasy 14, I got through the main story. I unlocked the EX trial. Haven't done it yet, and I'm gonna be doing the 24-man tonight with my FC.
Cool.
And that's pretty much it.
Alright, for myself, it's a little similar in that I've also been going through a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV as well. I've gotten myself in the MSQ up to just after collecting a bunch of stones on the ground, so I have yet to finish the MSQ, but that is something I'll be taking care of either later today or tomorrow. In addition to that, I have been spending time with PSO2. I'm finally doing some sales on the outfits I've accumulated since March, and boy, am I making bank.
Yeah, you said you have about 150 million on you right now?
I'm about 120 liquid, and then potentially in the investments I've made about 500 million. That being around 1,000 costumes or so, between cast shells and outfits and outerwear.
Yeah, early on was the best time to just pile on all the outfits because they were selling them for very cheap.
Yeah, it was like 100,000 per outfit or something.
I know it was, but now it's gone up in price as it happens because more people now have more Meseta.
Yep. But that happens with pretty much every MMO.
Yep. The more people have the currency, the more expensive everything gets.
Yep. All right. So
I actually remember seeing that in Final Fantasy 11 specifically. When it came to current retail, it is so stupidly easy to get a large amount of gil that most of the items that are still needed for endgame on retail, it costs like hundreds of thousands of gil to use or to get.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, that's what money sinks are for. It's to get money out of the economy so that it doesn't completely crash. Looking at you, PSU.
Well, PSU was a real exception because a hacker got in there and basically just gave everybody a bunch of Meseta. And they never did a rollback on that.
Nope. And that was a mistake.
Completely agree on that one. That was just silly. At least the Japanese markets were a little bit better than that.
True, but there was still no real good money sink in PSU.
Yeah, it was like you could... What was it? It was, I think, if anything, the most expensive thing was like constructing weapons and armor from the with your partner machine.
Yep. But the thing is that was usually never done because the best weapons you got from random drops.
Yep. And even then, you had... Until Ambition of the Illuminist came out, grinding was sort of a hit or miss sort of thing, because one bad grind and you break your weapon, you can't use it anymore.
Yep. Oh boy, I remember reading about that. I'm like, wow, okay, that's awful. I like how Portable 2 does it. Getting Meseta is still relatively easy, just getting random weapons and then selling them. But when it comes to the big money sink with that, that's the weapon grinding. You want to grind up the best weapons? Well, that's going to cost you a lot of Meseta. Like if you get a random 15-star weapon. Let me look at the Wikipedia or the PSpedia 2 here. Make sure I'm getting this correct. So when it comes to a 15-star weapon, you need in total 14.5 million Meseta in order to grind it up to plus 10, which is kind of hard to do. It's kind of hard to get that much Meseta.
Yep, definitely.
I remember it taking a good while just for me to get the 8.7 million I needed to grind my Lambda Excalibur to 10.
Yeah, and even with how they change things in Ambition of the Illuminist, where you don't break the weapon anymore, you're still never going to reach maximum potential anymore, because at that point...
didn't it decrease the maximum?
Exactly. So if it breaks, it decreases the maximum, and so then your maximum is always going to be like 9 out of 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think eventually there was a way to even fix that, but it was like very late in the game, and at that point I had just decided, you know what, I'm never going to go above a 4 grind.
Mm-hmm. And actually, in Japan, on the JP server, they did add a way to restore the maximum for money.
Yeah,
like real life money.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. I think that was what they did.
Mm-hmm. Which, that kind of stuff never saw the light of day in NA. Most of the stuff in PSU never saw the light of day in NA.
Yep, I completely agree on that. A lot of stuff was missing.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sega of Japan at the time. Yay.
And what do you expect? They were basically keeping the server a year behind the Japanese servers, so I'm really hoping that when it comes to Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, we're going to finally see parity between the North American and Japanese servers.
I really hope so. Anyway, that was a small tangent on in-game economies.
All right, indeed. So let's go ahead
into the stuff going on today.
Yeah, let's move into our main articles here. So, starting off with, there's a campaign going on to battle it out. So, you may have taken a turn or two in the battle arena, or you may be new to the idea. Either way, ARKS HQ wants to reward operatives who show the most dedication to their training by battling it out with other operatives. Clear emblem scramble several times as a ranked match, watch your battle rank grow, and you may be eligible for up to 100 star gems, the emote 319 Surf, and some tri-boost plus 100%. Don't miss this chance to not only hone your skills and reflexes, but gain some star gems in the process. Let's scroll down a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
So, beginning the 12th and ending, looks like at the beginning of maintenance on the 19th. So we're about halfway through that period right now. So, if you clear Emblem Scramble at least one time, you're going to get 3 tri-boost plus 100%. And then if you do 10 rounds of Emblem Scramble, you get the 319 Surf. Now, just to be clear, you do not need to be victorious in these. You just have to participate.
Yep. However, when it comes to Star Gems, you do need to be victorious.
Somewhat, yeah. You need to be able to gain rank within the ladder here. So, if you get yourself up to a battle rank of C5 or higher, you're going to get 20 star gems. With B5 or higher, you're going to get another 30-star gems, and with A5 or higher, you're going to get 50-star gems.
Yep, and I don't believe we talked about how the rankings are whenever we brought up Battle Arena initially.
I don't think so.
So, every battle that you win, you earn 20 rank points. It all depends on whatever rank you're currently on and how many rank points that you'll need in order to get up to the next part. Like,
I think it
so
goes.
yeah, regardless of regardless of what rank you are, you will always get 20 arena points if you win. However, after you get past being in C rank, if you lose, you will lose rank points and potentially rank down if you lose too much. So at C rank, if you lose, you'll lose 5 arena points, and at B rank, if you lose, you'll lose 6, and at A, I believe it's 7 or something. I don't know. I haven't gotten to A yet. I'm at B3 right now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you can even queue in as a group for these things or not.
You can't. The only ones that you can do as a group is the private matches, which don't give you any ranks.
Yeah, so it's like you need to get lucky that you're in a good team to begin with.
Uh-huh. Not only that, you're also going to be ranked up with other people around your similar rank as well.
Yep.
Sometimes. Like, I was around rank B5 when I was able to get into a team with PrinceBrightstar, who was only in rank D or something.
Yep. So once you start to rank up, at least you'll get some better group mates with you, but a lot of it is going to be based on other players' participation if you win or not.
Yeah, it's pretty much down to you just need to play good and just hope that everyone else plays good. Keep a hold of the mid with the rainbow stars. If you're not one that has the top 3 of emblems in your team, flank the other team, or try anyways to flank them, especially the ones that have the numbers over their name. You want to aim after those. There is strategy involved with this, a lot more strategy than I remembered back when I played on JP. So I actually started to enjoy the thing, but that's still all that it is. It's a thing.
Yep.
I enjoy it, but it's not completely PSO2.
Yeah, my plan is basically just to get the battle points that I'm going to need to get certain units once they finally release, and then I'm probably never going to look at battle mode again, even though it does give you those star gems weekly.
I'm still doing it for the star gems and because I'm actually enjoying it. Like right now, I already got my weekly star gems, and I'm at 2,000 battle points right now. So I just need to play a couple more matches, and then I should be fine for the next week, and then the following week, and following week, and following week.
Nice.
Yeah, I want those 100 star gems. That's nothing to scoff at.
Well, all right.
And I'm just glad that the star gem drought that we were in is finally coming to an end because of that.
Completely agree. And then the next thing we're looking forward to is once Buster Quests release in episode 5.
Yes, Buster. Wow. No, wait, wrong Buster. Sorry, Terry.
By the way, they changed the names of the piles to something else. I can't remember what they're called, but it's not going to be Buster Piles anymore.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Is it Buster Wolf?
I think it's Buster Rams, actually.
Buster Rams. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a shame because
you ran them into power.
Yeah, although it's a shame that they got rid of the name Pile because that was a name that originated in Phantasy Star Nova, and the Pile was a weapon that actually allowed you to drill into the Gigante that were on the planet to basically open up weak points.
Okay. See, I've played Nova just a little bit, but like I said, I didn't really like it that much.
It's definitely different.
I think it was the gameplay. It just didn't click.
It's definitely different, and it's partly because a lot of that game was actually handled by Tri-Ace and not Sega.
That makes sense.
Which
I really enjoyed Portable 2 mostly because it just was the universe style but perfected, in my opinion.
Portable 2, yeah, I would agree on that. The original Portable, that was still kind of using AOTI stuff.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to our next topic here. Persona!
Every day, long life, Juness.
So, we...
Oh, wait, Persona 4. But there is Persona 4 stuff in this, so it's still good.
Yep, we have a Persona AC Scratch here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's in this here.
Yes, finally it's in NA. Yay.
So, Makoto Yuki's uniform. So, Persona 3 there. And actually, I'm gonna yield to you on a lot of this because I don't know much about the Persona games, to be honest.
So Makoto is the main character in Persona 3, and the Gakuken female uniform. That looks like Femc, like the way that they styled that. I like it. Good. Fine. Giving more recognition to Femc because she needs it. Yukari Takeba's uniform just like Yukari, and if you're playing as Braver, then that's perfect for doing a flawless Yukari roleplay. Aigis, also great. She is the best robot waifu. Yeah, all you need is the BA. That's it. You don't need that OU. You just need that BA for Aigis. And Mitsuru, she is unreliable, constantly casting Marin Karen instead of using Bufadine or healing you. Stop using Marin Karen!
I think I remember this person from the Velvet Room.
Yes, she is the assistant in the Velvet Room in Persona 3. Hee-haw! It's Jack Frost. He's pretty much the mascot of Shin Megami Tensei and Atlas in general. Yu Narukami, he is the main character in Persona 4. Chie Satonaka is one of the other characters. She's basically like a tomboy character, really into martial arts. Marie is terrible waifu. She's a tsundere and writes terrible poems.
There's Teddy.
Oh, that's very awesome. Hey, there it is. Looking cool, Joker. And yeah, the one thing that's going to be the most expensive out of all these is all the Persona 5 stuff. So yeah, all of Joker's attires, including his Shujin Academy uniform. There's Ann's uniform, Lady Ann. I really need to finish Persona 5 Royal. Oh hey, the character that everyone forgets. And even in Royal, that still didn't fix their underdeveloped character. Futaba, everyone's favorite geek. Makoto, I believe one of my friends' favorite character in Persona 5 is Makoto. Yes, an evolution device of Jack Frost, which I obviously have, and Morgana. Alright, and we got some emotes. You could shoot yourself in the face, or you could smash a card, or pull off a mask. Obviously, shooting yourself in the face is the best one.
Yeah, that was interesting the first time I saw it.
Yeah, that's how you summon the Persona in Persona 3. It's called an evoker. So, for anyone who has never played Persona 3 or know about Persona 3, yeah, it looks weird that the characters just shoot themselves in the head. But yeah, that's what it is. They're not actual guns. They look like guns, but they're called an evokers. It's what you use to summon your persona. And one of the characters that has an evoker is a dog. His name is Koromaru, and he's a good boy. Very good boy.
I don't get
Also, all the dances, which were based off of the dancing games.
I don't get how a dog would have an index finger to pull the trigger.
Oh, it was designed by Ken, I believe. I believe it was designed by Ken. Like he wears something to be able to trigger it.
Gotcha. All right. So yeah, a lot of stuff with this AC Scratch here. Of course, you got your bear suit, your Jack Frost suit. Let's see. Was there anything that wasn't covered here? Oh, that's right.
Cast parts.
Yeah, there's the Ellie Atos outerwear. And then the male's also got where is it? It's the Monumental Agent set here. Which is kind of interesting looking. Kind of like let you look all cast like if you want to, I guess.
Oh yeah, the RL. Wait, go back to that one other thing.
This one?
The RO Alios. Okay. The Isle Alios, I believe she's a character in the fighting game, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax.
Gotcha.
If I remember correctly.
And then was this a character at all?
No.
Okay. But you do have some cast sets here as well. You got the Treon set for the males and the Eros set for the female casts. A bunch of hairstyles, of course, to go with the characters from Persona, through the various Personas, I mean. Some helmets as well.
And accessories to finish off the looks for the characters. The Joker mask. Oh boy. The mask. I'll reveal your true form.
And some
By the way, Xander Mobus did a fantastic job as Joker.
Yeah,
And if you don't know, Xander Mobus is also the announcer in Super Smash Brothers!
He's been around a lot, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, he has. What I'm disappointed in is that there's no voice ticket for Joker. I was hoping for that.
They said they're working on trying to get voice tickets, but who knows if they'll be able to figure out the licensing on all that.
Yeah, that is true.
Of course, we do have the typical assortment of consumables. Elemental Transition Ice is what you're going to get from this one. You got a bunch of posters based on Persona, music discs, which are going to be for Persona as well, a bunch of dances, and then you also get, if you get 20 scratches done, you get the Eros face.
Which is a female cast, which, yeah, that fits with that character. Again, I believe she's from the fighting game, from, like a, no, not the fighting game, I believe that's actually from Persona 3 Fez the Answer.
Gotcha.
I know there's another robot character from that.
Kind of reminds me of the Hugh Castiel from PSO, actually. All right. So along with that, we also have the Persona 3 and Persona 5 dancing live events here happening. And
because obviously, if you're gonna have the scratch, you're gonna have these concerts.
Yep. So help the
So there is a small rhythm game you can play with them. It is completely optional. It gives you nothing. You could just hit pretty colors.
Yes, there is that part of it, but I would also say you do at least want to get some practice in, because there's going to be something coming up, Dancing Festival for the ARKS, which is going to be, that's how well you perform, and that is going to change how well you dance.
Yeah, that is true.
So here is the schedule for the event here, and if you attend both of these concerts, both the Persona 3 and the Persona 5 Dancing Live concerts, you're going to get yourself a Morgana costume, as well as 10 Star Gems.
So you can walk around somebody who's wearing the Joker outfit, constantly tell them how cool they're looking, and then tell them to go to sleep.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm guessing you've never played Persona 5?
I've seen like a few videos, but that's about it.
Okay, so you don't know what I'm referencing when it comes to Morgana. But anyone who's played Persona 5, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, you have to attend both of the variations of the concerts. The one which is the rivers in the desert, and the other one is baby, 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 baby. Or Mass Destruction. Which is weird that they decided to do Rivers in the Desert. That's a pretty late game song. It's actually, I believe that's what's used in the final boss.
Yeah,
but it's a remix version of it, which is part of the dancing game. Same with, and I believe with Mass Destruction, it's just the regular version of Mass Destruction, which is the normal battle theme in Persona 3. And every time you go into it, you hear that baby, 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 baby.
but yeah, it looks like the schedule only has this going for 1 week, so make sure you get this in if you want if you want the costume.
Yep. And you definitely want that Morgana suit. It's great.
All right, so moving on from Persona, we have a tweet that the official team sent out here. Attention ARKS, we have confirmed an issue in which the quantity of Lilliparium All Max times 7 was supposed to display as 5, but instead it shows 7 in the AC Shop. We will revise this display during the 8.12 maintenance and distribute 2 additional items to the affected users, but they do also note in a further tweet down here, in the meantime, please refrain from purchasing the item in question. We apologize for the inconvenience this may have caused. Please stay tuned to our official social media accounts for further updates. And further from that, they also have a correction here. The issue in question will be revised during the 8.18 scheduled maintenance.
Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be fixed until Tuesday.
Pretty much, yeah. That's not good that this happened. Because now you're starting to deal with real dollars converted to ARKS cash. I mean, that's the kind of thing that somebody could try to hold Sega liable for.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's easy. Just give them the extra stuff.
Yeah, that seems to be what they're going to do here. But I hope they're going to do more than one for the people that purchase more than one of these. Because I saw somebody online who had basically maxed out all their crafting already.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would have used a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, probably. Because definitely not using all the free Lilliparium you get from the daily crafts.
Yep, and if I can
probably didn't use all of them.
And let me ask you a question: have you been into any of the mining base urgent quests since episode 4 launched?
I haven't actually.
Okay, because I ran one of those, and to me, it seems like the Lilliparium drops are missing from it.
Really?
Yeah, and that was supposed to come out once crafting came out. So that's something else that seems weird about what's going on here. So I'm gonna run a couple more times just to verify it, and then if I can't find any of them, I'm gonna send up a ticket about this, because that's supposed to help with reducing the cooldown on the crafting, and you're supposed to get them from the mining base missions.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of crafting, I need to do my daily crafts.
They're kind of high-end ones today, unfortunately. Yesterday was actually a good one. I was able to get through all of them without issue.
Yeah, you want to make sure to do those daily crafts, because the stuff that you get from them is pretty good.
Yep.
Just the daily ones, because it also easy way to increase your crafting levels as well.
Exactly. All right, let's move on now from the English side of things to the Japanese side of things. We do have a couple of scratches going on here. The first one is an AC scratch dedicated to support items. So from this scratch, you'll be able to change your element on the weapons that you've got. In addition, you've got some special ability affixes. These are essentially stronger versions of what we got in the English version currently. So Strike and Photon Point /3, and then Grand P. Those are basically the next tier, the next 2 tiers up in terms of strength from these. You're also going to have the chance of getting an ability protection 7 slot or lower. This item is untradeable. You can also get attribute enhanced plus 10%. Those are usually worthless, to be honest. Grind risk reducer full. That's only useful if you have, if you're like level, or rather, if you're like grind 8 or 9 on a unit that you haven't gotten up to 10 yet, or if you're working with old type weapons. Which, why would you do that at this point except for titles? There's also the Great Grind Success 100%, so that guarantees that you get the very successful on the new type grinds. You've also got mag support devices to feed them if you don't have yours at level 200 yet. And then there are some scratch bonuses here: a plus 50% ability success at 25 scratches, an add ability mark receptor at 50 scratches, and then the Exceed receptor at 75 scratches. That's the new one that came out with episode 6. So that's going to come off of your Photoner enemies.
Now, do I do the typical form poster and just say that this is blatant pay to win? Oh,
It is, but they do this so infrequently that it's pay to win, but it's at the same time you still have to put in the effort to get the rest of your augments together. So usually that's going to be like, you want an Apprentice Soul, you want a Persona Reverie, you want to get your attack thing, whether you're melee, range, or technique, and then you can grab one of these receptors and give that another boost, and then you'll throw like your S1, 2, and 3 on top of that.
So it's not pay to win.
Yeah, it's
not pay to win.
It's like
especially
an
since
eighth
all this
of it.
stuff can be bought from player shops as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Although the market on JP is very much so inflated.
Yep, but they've been going at it for 8 years, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
I still remember when the only way to reliably get weekly Meseta was through tacos.
Sugar Daddy Clotho!
I always just call them tacos. Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday.
Well, even before then, it was daily.
Well, yeah, there was daily, but you always did the weekly one, Taco Tuesday.
Right, but it used to be that, it used to be that you would get 500,000 Meseta by clearing each of the tacos on a daily basis.
Wait, daily?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I think that went up until like late episode 3, early episode 4.
And then they changed it to weekly.
Yep.
Yeah, because I didn't start until episode 4 and didn't really get into it until episode 5.
Yep, so a bit of history with how you got Meseta in the game, but eventually that all went away, and now we have what we have currently, which is through the missions.
Yep. Which is extremely easy to do, weekly missions.
Yep. If you got alts, you can do them repeatedly each week.
Yep. Very easy Meseta.
Indeed. All right.
Continuing on.
Yep. So, we also have another scratch here, and actually, let me scroll this back to the top here. So, Stargem Scratch, Roots of Darkness. So, this will be your Stargem Scratch for your Episode 6 villains. So, here is your Shiva outfit, along with all the variants for that. Your Mitra outfit, and all those variants. And Valna, and their variants.
And all the accessories and hairstyles.
Indeed. You've also got the Demise's Guidance, the Ronvima Killer, and the Shiva Throne. The Shiva Throne, unfortunately, is not an emote. It is just a furniture item that you can put into your personal quarters.
Still cool, though.
Yep. I still don't get what's up with Mitra's hood, why it had those little ear cuffs around the head like that when her ears weren't Newman ears.
I don't know.
I'm never gonna get over that, and that was one of the predictions I made about episode 6, that she was a Newman, and I got that one wrong. Let's see, you've also got a bunch of music discs here. You got voices for each of those characters, as well as a couple of Shiva poses. And then for your scratch bonus, you got the Aldina hair at 10 times, the Heaven Ender Rita Vrata, which is this one here. Kind of looks, if I can say, a little Monado-ish.
No, it needs that big circle in the middle.
It kind of has it here with the eye. Although I get what you're saying also. Kind of in this area. And then you...
Behold, the power of the Bonado!
And then you've also got, for 30 times, the 639 Verona pose. And then apparently there's also some sort of an AC scratch revival going on as well here. So, this happens from time to time where basically they bring back costumes from older sets and basically sell them again so that they can help balance out the market. So, yeah, you got the Magna Rega series for the male cast. You got looks like a bunch of episode 5 characters here actually, because you got Harriet, Elmer, Flo, Frau, and Clarissa hairstyles. And then once again a bunch of grind items, attack receptor, defense receptor, as well as attack and defense fusions. But yeah, that's pretty much all that's happening on the Japanese side right now. We're still waiting for the epilogue to come out, as well as the 12-man version of the final battle. Personally, I'm still waiting for the Arc Slayer team to finish up the translation of the final chapter of episode 6, so I can finally make my run at that and confirm some things I've been hoping to get confirmed.
Such as
some better clarification on the story and how things are ending here.
Don't want to spoil much, huh?
It's, what can I say? It's the culmination of 8 years of this game. I don't want to... Things are still unclear in terms of what actually happened here. Okay, moving on from PSO2, let's talk about Idola. So, Idola Phantasy Star Saga, they said that they were going to have a pre-registration soon on the App Store on Google Play, and that has in fact happened now. So you can go over, check out Idola Phantasy Star Saga by Bolt Ren Games, and you can pre-register for that right now. And on top of that, they have announced when it will be releasing. It will be releasing on... Let me make this bigger here. It's going to be releasing on September 17th.
Which is a Thursday. Odd day of the week to release something, but all right.
It is, but keep in mind that this team is based out of they're based out of Shanghai, so the timing on things may be different there.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's pretty much it for the Idola update. Can't wait to jump into that and actually learn more about the story there. I just recently completed a series from the closed beta going all the way up to the end of Chapter 6, but I didn't have time to look into the different characters and their sub-stories that lead to fate diversions, so that's one of the things I'll be looking forward to there. And moving on from that, let's kind of move into our last topic of today, but the one I'm expecting is probably going to take us the longest today. We said we were going to hold off on the new one that came out last week, since we were expecting this week to be a bit quieter. We have 2 developer interviews from the original Phantasy Star Online team here. So, let's start out here with 2020 being the 20th anniversary of Sega's Dreamcast role-playing game Phantasy Star Online. We are looking back with a series of interviews featuring key team members who worked on the game. Last week or 2 weeks ago, they chatted with producer Yuji Naka, and last week they moved over to Takao Miyoshi, a veteran from Sega who cut his teeth on many Sonic Team's offerings. Among other things, Miyoshi produced Sega's Christmas Night spin-off giveaway disc, which is well known for its wealth of fan service, music, and hidden bonus features. Phantasy Star Online was his first game as a director.
Oh, nice.
So let's start into the interview itself here. So once again, this series is produced by Polygon, so they'll be asking the questions here, but let's start by having you explain your role on the team. You were the director of PSO, but that can mean a lot of different things depending on the situation.
Miyoshi replied, I did the planning and original concept for the game. I was more of a director and supervised the overall project. At first, the planning document was just a single piece of paper. Then it expanded from there. If we go back to the very beginning of it all, it goes back to the Sega Saturn. We were trying to make an online game on the Saturn for a long time. That's when we first started exploring online gaming. At the time, I was working on a game called Burning Rangers. Small tangent real quick. Burning Rangers is one of my favorite Saturn games ever. It is really good. Here's the thing with Burning Rangers. The concept is extremely simple. You're a firefighter, but you're a futuristic firefighter.
Indeed. It is a fun game. Granted, it's only, 5 or 6 stages long, I think?
Yeah, it's only about 5 stages long. So it's not that long of a game, but I love the replayability of it by just seeing how quickly you can get through each stage. Because once you know the layout, because there is no mini-map, you need to figure out the layout yourself. But once you know the layout and you can get through and save everyone as quickly as possible, it feels good to play it. And I wish, once I get a Saturn, I'm going to rip Burning Rangers onto a disc because buying one physically is way too expensive.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If only Saturn emulation was better. Anyway, continuing on there. It was initially created as a network-compatible game with 4 players who go on a rescue mission, but there were network issues that we couldn't overcome, so it was released as a regular offline game. That was a game I had created with online in mind, but in which the online part didn't make it past the planning stage.
And from there, Polygon moves on and asks, wow, Burning Rangers was originally planned as a 4-player online game?
There's a lot of flying around in that game, and the maps are very complicated. So for PSO, we said no flying allowed, because that made things too complicated. That's why you can't leave the ground in PSO.
This changed for PSO2, obviously.
Yeah, you can jump and fly in PSO2. You can't fly in PSO2, you didn't jump though. But for PSO, we found out that it became difficult to navigate your character when they were flying in a 3D space, so we decided it was best to keep the player on the ground.
Yeah, if anything, we're probably going to have a closer resemblance to flying in New Genesis. Right now, for instance, if you're like a hunter or a bouncer, you have abilities that can take you way high into the sky to the point where you can hit the roof of the area. But yeah, it's not actual flying.
Yeah, it's falling with style.
Pretty much, yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned jumping, because when I spoke with the programming team, we discussed whether jumping was removed to avoid having to transmit too much data back and forth. It seemed like it was for practical reasons, but now you're saying it was also for spatial regions.
Yes. Satsuma handled all the server-related programming. He's the one who said definitely no jumping in PSO. I concurred, and that's how we made the game. We had to decide what kind of navigation would be network-friendly. You might notice in PSO, it's a lot like Diablo, where there are a lot of points that you can warp to. The reason why these points are so deliberately set is because if you're playing online, there would be enough time between points where data could sync up and everyone playing would be in the same location. There wouldn't be any lag where one player gets ahead of another player.
Yeah, and just from personal experience, yeah, it is very possible to desync PSO very easily, whereby you can have monsters on one side of the field for one player, and on the other side of the field for another player, still all contained within the same room. But that's essentially how one of the issues that affected challenge mode, known as damage cancel, kind of came to be.
Oh god, damage canceling.
Yeah. Thankfully, that's been fixed in recent fan releases of the servers.
Yeah, specifically Euphinia. But I'm just going to talk about damage cancel. So, for those of you who never played the original PSO, damage canceling comes because of packet deliveries. Too many people cause damage on the same enemy at the same exact time, so instead of dealing damage, it deals nothing. Even if it shows that numbers of damage showing, nope, it did nothing.
Yeah, not fun times there.
Yes. Which made it a pretty big issue if you were trying to tag enemies in order to get an EXP. Which is another thing I really didn't like about the original PSO, was that if you wanted EXP from all the enemies, so that, say, you playing as a Humar and you're trying to get some experience points in a ultimate group, you needed to make sure you had a ranged weapon so you could tag all the enemies before the Rangers and forces nuked them.
Yep, and a 0 didn't count. You actually needed to do damage.
Yep. Or a mess. So yeah, that was a bit of an annoying thing.
I think that existed into Phantasy Star Universe as well.
Yes, tagging is also a thing in Universe. If you did not tag the enemy, you got nothing. If you tagged the enemy, you got a reduced amount, and if you defeated the enemy, you got the full amount.
Yep.
I still don't like it.
Yeah, it's not the best system, and no worries there, Rooks. Glad you could join. We're approaching 2 decades since the game's release, and you were 20 years younger when it came out. Looking back, what is your impression of PSO now?
I was about 30 years old when I created PSO, and I quit Sega when I turned 40. I worked on the series PSO, Phantasy Star Universe, and PSO2 almost up until the release of PSO2. So PSO was my life for about a decade, and now it's been about another decade since leaving the series. Since that time, I've been studying and working on different things. The thing that stands out is that I was so young. If I had known the complexities of creating and running an online game such as PSO, I probably would never have made it in the way it turned out. I would have made prudent decisions and figured out how to simplify it. We didn't really understand what it was going to take, so we took many risks and pushed things through. Consequently, that was probably the right move. The word select system is a good example. I don't ever want to make something like that again.
Perhaps the word recklessness isn't the right word, but that sort of risk-taking where you're less cautious because you're young is probably what allows you to achieve a lot of what you did.
I've become wiser, right? I know that if I do this, then that will happen, which means I'm looking for efficiency and the path of least resistance. I think that leads to making familiar games where the path is clear and the return can be maximized. But at the time, everything was new and we couldn't foresee anything. So every step we took was uncharted territory. There's a certain amount of risk in that kind of environment, and as you get older, you become risk adverse. When you're young, you're not thinking with your head, so you can charge into areas without even recognizing it as a risk. I think there was an element of youthful enthusiasm that pushed the game through. And honestly, I'm glad they took all those risks, because the way that PSO turned out, I'm glad it did in the way it did.
Same here. I think they did the best with what they could with the technology that they had at the time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially since it was working with the Dreamcast.
Yep.
Not only that, it got the GameCube online.
Indeed.
And by getting the GameCube online, it opened up the homebrew. Thank you, PSO.
Yeah, that was a very interesting thing that happened there. So, I'm sure Nintendo wasn't exactly happy.
Yep, unnecessary consequence. Or unintentional consequence. That's it.
Yep. Okay, one person that was not young at the time and supported the team was Isao Okawa, former chairman of CSK and Sega. He even pumped 800 million of his own money into the company at one point to make sure the development teams could continue to make games that only Sega could make. So here was an older executive at the top of the company taking risks too.
PSO wouldn't have existed without him. At the time, the number one thing for Sega was how to blow people away by making something new. That was probably the biggest factor.
Yeah, it was a great period. PSO was a pioneering game, and this was your first game as a director. How did you navigate through that pressure?
Pressure was intense. This probably won't make it into the article, but this was around the time when North Korea launched a missile over Japan and it landed in the Pacific. Oh, Jesus. That happened in 2000, huh?
Yep.
Huh. I remember thinking that if the missile had landed in Tokyo, it would delay the launch. It would cause such a commotion that we would have to delay the launch, and we would have more time to work on the game. Laughs. That's how psychotic I was at the time. Oh, jeez.
Yep.
So, it's like, okay, missile landed in Tokyo. No, not carrot. Like, the hundreds of thousands of people that could die. No, the game's gonna get delayed. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting times back then. Did PSO launch pretty much on time, or did it suffer a lot of setbacks?
It didn't launch as originally planned, but it came out in 2000, right? We wanted to release it before the 21st century, so 2001, and I think it came out at the very end of 2000. So we just made the drop-dead deadline. But it was a forced release. There was quite a few bugs left in the game. Oh, the bugs.
Yep, and just a special note, for the Japanese players that did pick it up as it released, there was a 21st century event happening within the game, so you would see basically, I think it was a symbol of a 21 spinning in the not the lobby, but the Pioneer 2 ship area, and then the music was changed to play the theme from I think it was 2001: A Space Odyssey, Zarathustra.
Yeah. That song, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. But you want to talk about the bugs?
Yeah, I think
we already talked about the damage canceling stuff, but how about duplication of items and weapon stacking?
Yep, and door walking.
Door walking, yep.
And what was another good one? Targeting friendly players with attacks.
Yeah, that was a thing as well.
And reviving alive players to refill their technical point bars. Obviously, you had gained the confidence of Naka by that time. Why do you think he entrusted you to be the director of PSO?
Put bluntly, while I was the main planner for Burning Rangers, I also did the scheduling and solidifying of the game's concept design. So I was practically doing the work of a managing director under the title of main planner. So when it came time for PSO, I think they decided to give me the title. Satoshi Sakai was in charge of the art direction. Akio Setsumasa and Yosuhiro Takahashi were in charge of the programming, and I was put in charge of the overall project, including planning. Naka was the producer and basically came up with the overall vision of creating a global sci-fi RPG and handled the business-to-business situation, while I was the one who did all the promotional outreach and behind-the-scenes directorial types of things.
What sort of guidance and input did Naka provide during the development of the game?
Naka was very involved and provided a lot of ideas that were challenging to implement. He would tell me, we should do this, or we should do that. Some of his ideas were seemingly impossible, but we would struggle and make them happen, and that's how PSO became the final game. So I think that it's thanks to Naka's impossible orders that we were able to create something unique.
Because Naka began his career as a programmer, do you think that background helped him in coming up with ideas for the game from a producer standpoint?
Naka's concern was not for how hard the work was going to be for the team. His concern was that the ideas were awesome and had to be included in the game, so the game would be great. Yeah, and if you read the first part of this interview, he definitely explained that, especially when it came to mags. His philosophy was, you don't know until you try it, and ideas didn't stem from whether it was possible or, hey, this would help make our job easier. They came from pure enthusiasm. We're going to do this, so we've got to go make this happen. So we take those ideas or problems, put our heads together, and figure out solutions. We were creating things that didn't exist, so we would come up with possible solutions and try to convince him that what we came up with was practical and worked better than his initial ideas.
Yeah, Naka he did a lot of programming way back. I know one of the stories that's been told about him is how at the end of development for Phantasy Star, there was a little bit of space left over, and because some compression techniques that he had developed, and because of that, they were able to insert basically a photo of the 4 main characters of the game into the ending of the game. So that's just one of the little stories from that time. Continuing on from Polygon, they say, the process doesn't sound super fun.
It wasn't really fun, but it's the way a genius works. He would never bend on his ideas. Once he had an idea, it was impossible to steer him away.
He was unwavering?
Some people would say that. He was very strict, but that's why we were able to accomplish something that wasn't possible under normal circumstances. I think consequently, that's what made the game fun.
How did Sakai's prior experience and talent affect the outcome of the game?
He was the visual designer for the game and established the game's environment. You've interviewed him in the past, so I'm sure you're aware, but he was the designer of Azel and many of the dragons in Panzer Dragoon Saga. I think PSO benefited from his prior experience, just like with all of us. My prior experience on Burning Rangers and Sonic games, Panzer Dragoon for him, and Setsumasa brought his knowledge of network gaming. It was a combined effort of everyone's unique experiences.
Was Sakai responsible for the character designs in other areas?
He was in charge of the game's overall visual design, including character design and style. His specialty is designing monsters and dragons. The dragon in the first big battle of PSO is quite symbolic. That was all Sakai's work. Yes, the first dragon that you fight. Oh my, I like that dragon. He's extremely easy to beat, but I like him.
Completely agree, and eventually he does get an upgrade into the Still Dragon in Ultimate Mode.
Yep, where he just charges at you full speed right in the beginning.
Yep. And then does that spiral attack from underground. That was a surprise the first time I saw that.
Yeah, but now in Ultimate, usually a good group can defeat him before he does that.
Yep. For Panzer Dragoon, he not only did the design for the dragons, but also for the dragon morphing system. He is an animator and a modeler who could do many things. Was he able to have a similar kind of impact on PSO? Players can change the size and shape of their created characters, for instance. Was that idea part of his contribution?
Yes, we utilized his experience from his work on Panzer Dragoon Saga with morphing the dragon, and decided to incorporate that into PSO, primarily because Sakai had the know-how to do that.
Obviously, Diablo was a big influence on PSO. How much Diablo did you play yourself?
I played quite a lot. Nobody on our team had worked on an online game, so one of the challenges was getting the team to understand what made online games fun. I had a lot of people play the game, but a lot of them were turned off by the dark fantasy. They would say, it's disturbing, or I don't get why it's fun. Trying to unify the team and getting them to understand the direction we wanted to take the game in was very difficult.
Did you have LAN parties where you played in a controlled environment so that the team could understand the cooperative elements?
We installed Diablo on everyone's PC in the office and had a closed LAN and spent many days playing together so that the team could learn what network gaming was all about. They could have done, along with Diablo, they could have done other MMOs that were available during that time. I believe Ultima and EverQuest were available during that time.
Yep, and Meridian 59 as well, I think.
Yep. I know Ultima and EverQuest were huge influences on Final Fantasy XI. Because I remember reading developer interviews with that, and they used those as a blueprint on how to establish their own game, but with using it as a Final Fantasy flair.
Yep. Just a quick side note here. Apparently the creator of Meridian 59 passed away recently, so just yeah, it's a shame, and apparently it was because of the current virus going around. Um, Moving on here, was there a point where you saw people starting to get the appeal, like the satisfaction of seeing a rare item drop, where you felt the team really get into the game?
Some people like Setsumasa stayed around until 10 or 11 p.m. at night after people left the office. He wouldn't connect Diablo to the network and play. He would connect Diablo to the network and play until morning, wake up to work, and then play again. Some of us weren't going home much at the time. Some people would go home just to bathe, sleep a few hours, come back into the office to work, and then play Diablo at the office. Mostly in the name of research, though. There are a number of games that we used as inspiration. Diablo was obviously one of them. I had heard that Dragon Quest was inspired by remaking Ultima with a Japanese audience in mind. So our concept was, let's make a Diablo game that would appeal to the Japanese audience. Yes, I do know that about Dragon Quest, because I'm a pretty big Dragon Quest fan myself. And yeah, when it came to Dragon Quest, there was no console RPGs at the time whenever it came out. And most console RPGs were designed in the West with a Western audience in mind. So that's why when it came to Dragon Quest, they wanted to make a Japanese-themed role-playing game. So it was the birth of the JRPG genre.
I'm going to make one small correction there. There actually was one prior console RPG. It was on the Atari 2600, and it was called Dragon Stomper.
Okay. But yeah, the Atari really wasn't that popular in Japan.
Yeah. I think there might have also been a D&D game on the Atari as well, now that I think about it. But I don't think it was turn-based.
Okay.
Continuing on, with good results, even though Diablo is a distinctly American game, PSO feels like a very distinctly Japanese game. And yet, it's not just palatable to Japanese gamers, but to everyone.
I think Diablo is an amazing game, but it's not a game that appeals to Japanese players. Our suspicion was that Japanese gamers would prefer to cooperate and work together to defeat something more than to compete and fight against other players. That's why we created PSO to be a cooperative role-playing game. Diablo has cooperative elements, but it also has PK and elements of killing other player characters. We eliminated those elements and focused on how we could make a fun, cooperative RPG experience. I think that's the biggest difference between PSO and Diablo.
The single player in PSO is almost exactly the same as the multiplayer, though when you're playing alone it can be tedious because you have to zone out and return to attack before you get surrounded by enemies. When you're playing multiplayer, that's when something magical happens because the cooperative elements make it so much more fair and fun.
We did adjust the difficulty level between characters for single player and multiplayer. So single player mode should have been a little easier to play, I think. The number of monsters that appeared was a little smaller, etc. It was our first online game, so we had to make sure that it could be played as a single player game. But at the same time, we did spend a lot of time developing for the multiplayer experience, so single player might have come off feeling a little more challenging.
Yeah, and what they're talking about there with zoning out, you can actually leave the room that you're in, and enemies will reset to their original default states, and then you can come back in and make another round of attacks at them.
Yep, but honestly, that's usually what will happen when it comes to games that are designed for multiplayer. The single player experience is going to feel very off.
Yep. Or even in some cases, impossible, like in the case of like Final Fantasy XI.
Yeah, Final Fantasy XI, you cannot do anything past level 10 solo, for the most part.
Yep. You do have...
for Final Fantasy XI is you go from level 1 to level 10 by yourself, and from level 10 up to level 75, you're in parties.
Yep. Speaking of the online multiplayer experience, when the Xbox version came out, it was the first version where it was mandatory to be online. This was at a time when being online all the time was still difficult due to the internet speeds, lack of broadband, etc. You had to have Xbox Live even to play the single-player mode. A lot of people didn't like that because you couldn't play the single-player mode offline.
Forgot about that. I think it was Microsoft's request. It was at a time when they wanted to make Xbox Live attractive, So I think they wanted a title that required Xbox Live. Of course, it would have been possible to make the game without requiring the use of Xbox Live. But back to the comparison between the single and multiplayer modes, you'll recall that there were quests in the game. These quests were made for single player mode, and the exploration pace and frequency of items dropping were the same as in the multiplayer mode. So I think if a player was exploring and trying to collect rare items alone, that would have been quite challenging. If we had made that aspect of the game easier for the single player mode, there wouldn't have been any motivation on the part of the player to play the multiplayer mode. It made playing as a group more exciting and rewarding to be able to go into areas that you couldn't if you were playing alone. You could play the game alone, but it was better when you played with others. That was the conceptual idea. Also, when it comes sidetrack on this, when it comes to Xbox Live being required on the Xbox version, yes and no. All it requires is that you have an Xbox Live account on the Xbox. If you don't, you're shit out of luck. But if you do, you can get the Xbox version off of Amazon and still be able to play it. However, with the Xbox Live server emulation starting to come to light, the Xbox version will be playable once again by everyone.
Yep, and hopefully they'll be able to connect it up with servers like Affinia and such.
Well, not Affinia, but like servers that are already set up for Dreamcast, GameCube, and the like.
True.
And PSO PC version 1.
Speaking of...
there was a PC release of PSO before Blue Burst. I believe it was called PSO PC version 1 or something.
It was version 2, actually, in terms of what version of the game it was. But yeah, it was a version that supported movement through your mouse and things like that.
Yep.
Speaking of rare items, go ahead.
There are multiple like Blue Burst servers, but there's not really that much for like the original PC release of PSO.
Right.
So anyway, continuing on.
Speaking of rare items, do you remember which item was the rarest in the game?
The spread needle was pretty rare, and this wasn't necessarily the rarest item, but Agito is also rare. Every class of items have really good rare items. I can't remember which was the rarest, but Agito was my favorite. There was a borderline bug/exploit that was discovered by one of the users, where if you use one of these wide-ranging weapons that fired shots in all directions, and changed your weapon to a stronger weapon immediately after you fired the first weapon, it would convert the bullets from the first weapon into the bullets of the stronger weapon. The damage on the enemy was calculated by the weapon being held by the character when the damage was made, so by switching over to a stronger weapon before the damage was calculated, the player could exploit the system to create greater damage.
That would have been really hard to do back then, though, because you didn't have access to the quick menu.
Nope, quick menu was added in version 2.
Exactly. Wow, that's a handy tip. Is it true that PSO was initially called Third World?
Third World? Did someone say that?
It's been mentioned elsewhere. It's possibly an urban legend.
I don't think so. Before it was called Phantasy Star Online, it wasn't a sci-fi game. It was a fantasy adventure RPG. In the beginning, the player had their own island and sailed across the sea to other islands to explore. The player would find other characters and materials on the various islands and bring them back to their own island to make it bigger and stronger. The player would make weapons with the materials brought back to the island too. The goal was to expand and build your own island and explore with other players. That's the kind of role-playing game I had in mind at the beginning.
That's starting to sound like an open world game, if I'm being honest here.
Yeah, that is true. Honestly, that kind of game idea is pretty interesting.
Yep. Almost like Minecraft in a way.
Yeah, kind of.
And Polygon actually says, that sounds almost like Skies of Arcadia. Another thing Satsuma said was that when you first started developing PSO, the camera perspective was isometric like in Diablo.
He probably had various ideas in the beginning. Everyone submitted ideas, and we had a variety of ideas. Before we had PSO, the question was how were we going to make an online game, and we started with that fantasy online game I mentioned. At the time, there was a manga that was very popular called Hunter x Hunter. It was a popular Japanese manga, not comic book, it's a manga. We were inspired by that and made the characters hunters and had them exploring their world, discovering interesting items and making comrades to their adventure. It was a hunter's guild in PSO, and that's where the concept stems from. But regarding the isometric view, we weren't really thinking of doing that.
You worked at Sonic Team for a long time. Did you work on Nights?
I wasn't involved with Nights, but there's a spin-off called Christmas Nights. I made that game.
Christmas Night is great. It features Sonic the Hedgehog and has tons of content. It was a super piece of fan service.
Technically, it was free in Japan as well. It was a pack-in with the Sega Saturn, but for people who already owned a Sega Saturn, we distributed it for free if they sent us the shipping cost. It was designed as a fan service. We made that in 2 months.
You should be proud of that.
I wasn't supposed to make it. I was asked to just create the planning document, so I wrote up a 2 or 3 page planning doc for Christmas Nights and handed it in saying, please go make this, and I left to go to the UK to make Sonic 3D Blast.
You moved to the UK?
No, a dev team called Traveler's Tales in the UK was making the game, and I went for the first 2 weeks of development. Up until then, I had been working from Japan, sending documents to the UK, reviewing their work, and sending back feedback. But for crunch time, I flew out there to finish the game. Oh, by the way, spinning off of this, so Sonic 3D Blast, if you know about the YouTube channel Game Hut, the original founder of Traveler's Tales, that's his YouTube channel. He actually made a director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast.
Huh.
So yeah, this director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast, it fixes some issues that people had with the original game, adds in like a level selecting along with a save feature through password. And if you go onto his YouTube page, he actually details all the different stuff that he did on the games that he helped program, and the very unique ways of coding that they had to do in order to get the really impressive visuals that they did on the hardware they were working with.
I think I've seen some of those videos. It was like to get the Sega logo rotating the way that it did smoothly. It was like they had to do like 7 frames per second, but in each of those frames, it was like 4 different colors of the logo that they flipped to, which gave the image of basically 30 frames per second, and things like that.
I don't know. Is John Burton still working at Traveler's Tales?
I'm not sure. Look that up real quick.
I think he still is. He was a co-producer for the Lego Movie and the sequel.
Looks like he is still active. In fact, he did the director's cut, and now there's a TBA on an Untitled video game where he's creative director, lead designer, and writer.
So yeah, John Burton's still active. And yeah, when it comes to the stuff that John Burton does, while the games might not be the best, his programming skills is top-notch. Like, even though Rascal is not that good of a game, he was able to get impressive visuals running at a solid 60 FPS on the PS1, which is impressive.
Definitely.
Anyway, back to the article here. When I returned to Japan 2 weeks later, nothing had been done with the planning doc I had written for Christmas Nights, and I was told there was nobody else to work on it. So from the day I returned from the UK for 2 months straight, I basically lived at work making Christmas Nights. It was in the peak of summer, and I was holed up in the office listening to Jingle Bells.
It's beautifully done, though. The a cappella version of the theme song is gorgeous. The reason for asking about Nights is that it had the Nightopian A-Life system. Sonic Adventure had the Chow system, which grew from that, and PSO has the MAGs. It's really impressive because that pet system grew in complexity over time. In PSO, it's almost like a game in a game, because you have to feed the pet, etc. It's a lot like a Tamagotchi.
Not really, but alright.
Now, that's what they said here.
Yeah, I know. The A-Life system was created in Nights, and that system was used to create the Chow in Sonic Adventure, and that know-how was passed down to PSO. Initially, the plan was to have players take a dragon's egg, nurture it, and then raise the dragon that hatched from the egg. Sakai was good at designing dragons, so we thought that would be cool. But then we realized the sheer number of dragons that we would have to design for the game, and decided it would be impossible. If the dragon walked with the player and each player had their own dragon, that would mean there would be 8 characters on the screen when playing online. It just became technically impossible. We couldn't have that many polygons on the screen. I was told that we could only have a small round character floating in the air above the player's character, and that's how we came up with the mag. We had the idea to incorporate something similar to the A-Life system in PSO from the beginning, and we had to come up with a system that would work for the game, and the mag system is where we landed. We could change the shape of the mag's body, we could make it bigger or chubbier, but we couldn't add clothing. So in order to show some evolutionary elements to the mag, we adjusted the silhouette and added things to the back like wings, and enlarged it as the mag got stronger. And there's also like the evolution mag devices, which give the mag a shape of something similar to Sega's past or something.
Yep.
Like a Dreamcat mag.
Or a hamburger.
Or a Chow. Or the cat from Choo Choo Rocket.
Yep. If I can just interject for a brief moment here, that initial system with raising a dragon and such, that's starting to sound like Scalebound there.
Yep. Oh, Scalebound, why couldn't that have happened?
I know, that was the one game, aside from PSO, that would have made me buy an Xbox.
Yep. But too many complications between Microsoft and Platinum, so...
Yep. So you weren't part of this system's evolution from Knights?
No, others at Sonic Team made the A-Life system, and it was Naka's idea to incorporate the A-Life system into PSO. I wasn't involved in Knights in the least. The team that worked on Knights was burned out from working on that title, so that's why I had to come in and make Christmas Knights.
Do you know who came up with the original idea for the A-Life system?
I don't know for sure. If that person is still at Sega, it might be Takashi Iizuka, the original game designer of Knights. Okay.
Were there any concerns in PSO about balance issues?
Okay, before I read this. Oh my god, the balance issues in PSO.
Oh yeah.
I'll just say this when it comes to classes. Forces, they're terrible early on, but once you get into the end game, especially Ultimate, they are a nuke. And that's the same thing with Rangers. Hunters suffer so much in endgame. They're still strong, don't get me wrong, but they suffer a lot.
Oh yeah.
They have high single target damage, but that doesn't matter when AoE damage is the name of the game when it comes to endgame stuff. Anyway, I'm going to read this now. One of the ideas from the early concept stage was to let players enjoy playing the game as different characters. So there was a variety of weapons and mag types to help a player become a stronger character. We didn't want to hinder the player's curiosity of trying different characters or experiencing different playstyles within the game by forcing them to invest so much time and effort into one character. One way we thought we could encourage players to play different characters was if they could transfer their mag. We also removed the first part of having to nurture your mag from birth, and instead let players jump straight into being able to play the game with a completely leveled up mag. One of the downsides of online games is that it's difficult for people of different levels to play together. Again, from the concept stage, we wanted to try to eliminate any barriers that would prevent people from playing together, regardless of your level of ability. I think we were successful in creating this balanced mag system that allowed us to achieve these things.
Being able to fully develop mag and giving it to a completely new character to not be totally weak, even with the level 1 character at the start of the game, was a great idea. Were there ever any more of the established character classes that were dropped because of time or development reasons?
Not any of the playable character classes, but there were NPCs that were cut. When we decided to use the Phantasy Star lore, there was an enemy character called Rutsu. We were initially planning on including this character. I had envisioned a scenario where there's a fossil in the lowest level of the game. That fossil is the spaceship with Dark Falls, an enemy character from Phantasy Star sealed inside. The force that is keeping Dark Falls inside the spaceship is a witch called Rutsu, but her concentration and strength is weakening, and Dark Falls is beginning to break free from her grip. We discussed all this, but it was cut from the finished game.
It might have been cut, but that is some very, very important lost lore there about the game. Rutsu, if you're unaware, was... first they were known as Noah in the West, but eventually they did get their name, although they were renamed to Lutz in the West in subsequent releases. Lutz was supposed to also have a primary role in the second Phantasy Star on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, whereby it was more of a sci-fi mystery thriller, or rather detective thriller, in terms of how that story was supposed to play out. Rutsu then, of course, showed up again in Phantasy Star End of the Millennium as Rune, or Threy, as they're called in Japan. So it's really interesting to see that line continued on, at least in the original plan, and that essentially confirms the connection between Algol and Rogol. So now it's just a question of, is that ever going to be potentially re-explored at any point here?
I don't know.
This is also the first reference of a Rutsu being female, but then again, we don't know all the information about Rutsu, all the different generations of Rutsu, so it's possible that there could have been another female one in between the multiple thousands of years that all those games spanned originally.
Like something similar to Shiva?
Shiva being PSO Episode 6?
Yeah.
So, to clarify here, the way the Rutsu line was continued was they all had their natural lives to go through. But what they had access to was essentially an item that would transfer the memories of one Rutsu into the next. And so that's how the memories of the original fight against Dark Falls continued throughout the different generations. And it's possible that this Rutsu had the memories of the Rutsu that were involved with Phantasy Star 1, Phantasy Star 2, and Phantasy Star End of the Millennium. And so that's why they were still holding this Dark Falls. That's at least the way I interpret this here. Continuing on, the reason?
We couldn't get around to implementing the cutscenes and incorporating any more new characters into the game.
Yeah, that is a real shame, but at least now they have actually confirmed the connection of everything there. The Dreamcast version allowed for the capture of screenshots of the game. This is something that we take for granted now in gaming hardware, but this was yet another pioneering thing that PSO did before anybody else on a console. Why did you attempt it? This was before social media really existed.
There was no social media, but the internet was beginning to filter through to the masses, and people were starting to create their personal homepages. We wanted people to write and talk about PSO on their homepages, right? And we thought it would be more effective if they could take their own screenshots and upload it to their websites. We figured it would be a useful tool that players would use to talk about PSO on their personal sites. When players took a screenshot, it would be saved onto Sega's Visual BBS website and could then be downloaded onto the player's PC to be used on their website. At the time, it was quite a hassle to try to save console screenshots and save them onto your PC, so we included a tool that would simplify the process for the player.
Just for perspective, this is back in the age of Angel Fire and GeoCities. Other online multiplayer console games like Final Fantasy XI remove player names from in-game screenshots for privacy reasons. Did you have to do something similar for privacy issues, or was that not a concern yet?
The Visual BBS saved exactly what was on the player's screen. Yeah, it didn't take on anything.
Right. Does that feature still work today?
You would have to be connected online, and I'm not sure if it's accessible overseas. Japanese users were uploading it to the Visual BBS site, so I don't know if the overseas version retained this feature. Can you vouch for that? Did it retain the feature or not?
I think it did have the feature. I'm just not sure how players uploaded it at the time. No, Rooks, I don't think it's bad that you missed the GeoCity era. It's Web 1.0 has its quirks and its Comic Sans and different layouts and things like that, but it was also a fun time of exploration when it came to the internet before things really started to get locked down. Go ahead.
I remember when I was a very young kid back when early internet was starting, And yeah, I remember that kind of era. The the whole meme of graphic design is my passion birthed from that era purely because of how interesting a lot of personal websites were.
Yep. I mean, if you look around, you can still see some from that era. Just
Yep.
look for like web rings and things like that.
There's a lot. Some of those websites are still up.
Yep.
Which is amazing.
And then, of course, you got the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine as well.
Mm-hmm. Hell, Final Fantasy 11 with that game is still going on, and the website that they use for it is still designed in the same way that it's been since 2002. So it does not fit a widescreen. It is still in a 4:3 ratio.
They probably do that for compatibility or something.
Probably. Hey, there are still people who can play this on an old PC, so...
Yep.
Gotta keep the website good for that, I guess.
Moving on here, people who read about this might wonder about it now. Did the GameCube version also have this feature?
Where did you see that from?
We're right underneath where it's talking about
this feature. Hey, that's actually, you skipped that.
Oh, okay. Does this feature work today then?
No, we did do that. Never mind. GameCube version. I think it did. It was a port, so it should have included the same features. Files were quite big, and the GameCube had such a small amount of memory to begin with. The memory card would only have enough room for one save file in one screenshot, so it's possible that it didn't exist on the GameCube version.
That makes sense. When working on Phantasy Star Universe as the producer, what did you want to retain from PSO, and what did you want to change for PSU?
There were a few changes that we couldn't accomplish in PSO. I mentioned earlier that an early concept was to have the player start on islands and to travel to other islands to discover and explore. Another thing was to have your own room and make your own shop, display items for sale, etc. These were ideas that were dropped early in the planning stages of PSO, but we were able to include them in PSU. Also for PSU, we were able to store save data on the online server, and for PSO, we were only able to focus on the gameplay elements of the game. So for PSU, I wanted to focus more on the story elements of the game. Those 3 points are things that we didn't do in PSO, that we were able to do in PSU.
In hindsight, do you have any idea why PSU wasn't as universally adored as PSO?
Actually, in terms of number of sales, PSU sold better. Maybe not overseas, but at least in Japan, PSU sold better. We also released a PSP version of PSU, which increased the user base, so I think that was a positive. One thing I can think of is that maybe the online multiplayer element wasn't as appealing. The visual effects of the battles and magic spells became more elaborate, and there was less focus on the strategy aspects for the player. Since there were fewer options for the player in PSO, players had to get creative in their strategies. Oh, so with PSU, if I remember correctly, looking at the review scores that were released back in the time, it wasn't really that favorably received compared to PSO.
Agreed.
And the emphasis on story? Oh boy.
A lot of laughter in that. I remember the X-Play review when that came out, and it was not nice to it at all, unfortunately. What I will say is, thinking back to when I was playing the Japanese release of Phantasy Star Universe, I can vouch for how well PSU sold there, because it was a few days into the launch, and they had to take the servers down for like a week or so, because there were just too many players. The servers couldn't handle it, and so they had to spend the time to bring up the infrastructure for what was called World 2, and so that's why you had that World 1 and World 2 login on the North American side as well.
Yep. At least when it came to PSU, you could play offline in the time and deal with the awful voice acting. It's more so on the NA side than the JP side. Although I have seen some of the cutscenes on the JP side, and yeah, the voice acting's not that great either. Better than it is on NA. Oh boy, especially Ethan Weber. Oh.
Yep.
And by the way, Ethan Weber is the main character, and his voice actor is not good.
Yeah, it's such a shame because the voice actor community back then wasn't that big. So I do know, like in an interview, I think he said he knew the voice actor for Magashi.
Hmm.
But also to the point on the visual effects for the battles and magic spells becoming more elaborate. Yeah, that got to the point where I think they had to let players essentially turn that down in the game.
Yeah, because especially when it came to the, let's just take Rough OA for example. Rough OA is the one that you can just hold and it just spews fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, level 1 Rough OA is pretty small, pretty easy to still say things. Then you get to level 11 Rough OA, it gets a lot bigger now. And then level 21 Rough OA, you can't see anything, it's all fire.
Yep, and then there's there's one of the Barda spells. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it was basically, it started as just like this really small thing on the ground that you could constantly hold and create more ice. And then once you max leveled it, it was like, it filled the screen. And it was like...
That's Robarda. all the raw spells had that issue. So they toned it down. They allowed the players to tone it down. And in Portable 2, it was toned down a lot. It's still pretty big, and you can get that cool visual effect with it, but it's toned down massively compared to how it originally was.
Yep. Moving on from there, did you work on Phantasy Star Online 3 episode 3 Card Revolution?
I didn't have much to do with it. Kinda hate how they treated the player character in later chapters of the story. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, it was sort of like we were just along for the ride, and it was still sort of the Ethan and Karen show at that point.
Yep. But even then, like when it came to the first episode in Phantasy Star Universe, you didn't play as your player character at all throughout the story. You were Ethan Weber.
Yep.
It was episode 2 where it was the player character, which, yeah, the player character got mostly ignored throughout most of it.
Yep, and that's because Ethan was doing his own thing in Phantom of Arcgard.
Yep.
And
Card Revolution.
Yep.
I still don't understand Card Revolution. I tried playing it. I still don't get it.
You kind of have to get into how the game works. For me, I did play it for a really long time. I enjoyed it, but it was always the online element that got me, especially in the fact that you had to get those VIP cards in order to actually get the really good cards from the game. And unfortunately, I think in my entire career of playing that game, I only got one VIP card.
Oh, wow. I know there are private servers set up that do have connection to for episode 3. I might set it up on Dolphin just to see if I can do that.
It's not working 100%, I think.
Yeah, either that or through Dolphin or Nintendo on the Wii or Wii U. That has a BBA emulation.
Gotcha. Especially after how good the... Go ahead.
And also, by the way, for people who don't know about the BBA emulation on Nintendo, it's a lot better than it is to buy the game on GameCube, because, dear God, finding a copy of that game nowadays. Like, let me just look on Amazon to see what a used copy of PSO Episode 1 and 2 is.
I think it's like over 100 or something right now.
Close to that. It's trying to show me something unrelated. Okay, Amazon's being stupid right now. But yeah, it's pretty damn expensive. Phantasy Star Online. I don't want online too, just online. So version 2 on the Dreamcast is about $50. So pretty simple one thing. And then used Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2, not the Plus version, just the regular version, $90.
Is that the Japanese or the North American version?
North American.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to episode 1 and 2 Plus, $330, and it's disc only. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good deal there. Just grab yourself a PC, log into Blueburst, you'll be fine.
Yep. Or find the ISO online and play it on the GameCube, or play it on the Wii or Wii U through Nintendo, or through Dolphin, or burn it onto a mini DVD. Play it that way. I don't know. Just don't buy it for the price of a Nintendo Switch. It's not worth that much.
Moving on.
Anyway,
Yep.
Continuing on off of that tangent.
Especially after how good the first PSO was and how high the expectations were for the next game. Nobody expected a card battle game, because it's a very different kind of game. Was there as much disappointment in Japan as there was in the US?
I wasn't involved with that title, but there were members of the PSO team that wanted to make a card battle game, and they wanted to add a PSO spin to it. So they went off and made that game. But I wasn't involved, so it's hard for me to comment on that.
It was disappointing because it had the PSO name attached to it. If they had called it something like Rappy's Card Battle, nobody would have been upset. Probably.
If it was a game I had made, I would respond to the criticism, but there are politics involved when commenting on other people's works. So I can see how fans of PSO would be disappointed if they were hyped to hear another game was coming out, and then to find out the new PSO game was a card game.
Smartphones and portable devices are so much stronger than consoles from back then that it seems like Sega could easily put the original PSO on a new device. It's such a great game and so many people still want to play the original game. People still run private Blueburst servers. Would you like to...
Shout out.
Say again?
Shout out to Euphinia.
Yep. Would you like to see PSO released on something modern?
Sure. I think it would be nice to see PSO on a modern device. It's Sega's property, so it's not something I can comment on with any kind of authority. But I think PSO was a good game, and I don't see why not.
In your opinion, what's the best version of PSO to play? Blueburst?
Yeah, Blueburst.
It's...
And I agree with that. Blueburst is the best version of PSO to play. It has the most amount of content. It has the best balancing for ultimate difficulty, and it's just the best visually as well. And network-wise, it's the best.
I'll agree there as well. It's impossible to find now.
Well, you can't play that version anymore because the servers are down. If you want to play the normal version, probably the GameCube version then. There are probably fan-made servers, so the Dreamcast version might still be playable. Honestly, that's actually pretty cool that he's pointed out, oh yeah, there's fan-made servers of them. You can play those.
Yep. Blueburst can't be played offline, right?
No, you can only play online. If Sega will hire me, I'll make another version.
Here's another thing. It seems like PSO would be the easiest merchandising opportunity. Mag merch, blind boxes, you name it.
How about a Kickstarter campaign? We could probably do it with about 100 million yen.
Sega PR, how about running the online side?
We'll keep it to a minimum. Just keep the servers running.
Is there anything you would like to say to the fans?
I feel very grateful to be interviewed for a game that was released 20 years ago. I don't think I would have been interviewed if it was a boring game, so I'm glad I was able to create a game that has left a lasting impact on the players. I feel proud, and I'll try to feel proud about releasing Christmas Nights too. He's not proud about Christmas Nights?
I guess not. Like he said, he only had, 2 months to develop the thing, I think.
Yeah, true. And it is like a very short, just fan service thing. But yeah, that is the article there, and I don't know if we should get into the next part here since we're already going pretty long already.
Yeah, we're already at an hour and 30 minutes for today, so I mean
40.
it's up to you if you want to do it.
I'm starting to get a bit tired.
All right. Then what we'll do is we'll hold on to this this next one, which was with composer Hideaki Kobayashi. We'll see if we're able to fit it in next week, but that's going to depend upon what else gets released in terms of news for next week. We're probably going to have the typical rotation of AC, Fun, Urgent Quest schedule, and things like that. So we'll see. Plus, there's the potential that we might be looking at the new Clementine version very soon as well. So we'll see if we're able to fit it in. If not, then we will hold it for another week, at which point we'll actually have 3 of these to go through the week of the 29th.
And speaking of Clementine, they are back with their last announcement post on July 25th. They did say that they're aiming for a mid-late August release.
Exactly my point.
Yep. It is mid-August right now, so they're in that time frame to still release. So I am really excited to get back into playing some PSU.
Same here. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up here today?
Not that I can think of right now. I'm glad that the Persona scratch is there. And actually, I didn't bring this up. I actually mentioned this to you, and I mentioned it to a few other people. So when the Persona scratch started, I decided, you know what? I have a 350 AC on my account. I'll just do one scratch. Why not? I'll take what I get and probably sell it in my own shop. So I do it. I select the top option, and I get the Jack Frost suit. And if you're on my if you see me on Discord, I have the Jack Frost as my profile picture right now. So yeah, I was a bit happy about that.
Getting the thing that you want right off the first scratch, that is amazing.
That's the only one thing I wanted was the Jack Frost suit. And then off of Player Shops, I bought the Jack Frost mag and a Jack Frost statue to put in my house. So yes, I am a very happy hee-ho.
All right.
Anyway, bring up that story.
Yep. Definitely fun. What?
That's all I have there.
All right, and so that brings us to the end of this episode. On behalf of Xance and myself, thank you for joining us today. Day has dawned. Have a great day, everyone.
Johnny.